Hey guys, welcome back to the Hard Time Strongman Podcast. 6 7. We are here to do a Dadisode on legality versus morality. Long story short, even though it's right legally, morally, you might have a broken compass. But let's delve into this a little. So,
Yeah, what you said.
yeah, I mean, just thinking about it though, it's like they do overlap a lot, but the only difference is, if you're doing things based on the rule of law, that's it. You're governed by a specific set of rules written down that you have to follow. Otherwise, I mean, with the American government, it's you're facing either prison or death if you don't follow it. Like that's
Well,
kind of what it
you
is.
you have to you abide by the laws and consequences of the land,
Right.
wherever land you're in, right? So, quick definition: legality. So it's the attachment to or observance of law versus morality is the quality of being in accord with standards or rights of good conduct or good conduct. So
So we're talking
you
right or
are
wrong
being
or good or bad.
right, and we see how wonderful our legal system is here, but
It falls
that
into
is
this.
the that is the idea, right? So this is a DASO legality versus morality. Dadisodes, we try to teach you all things that your dad should have taught you, right?
Yep.
And this is a pretty heavy subject. So, this will have been, later on in life, but it's an accumulation of experiences as you're growing up, finding your rights and lefts, right? Something that we touched on, or at least mentioned in earlier episodes are what are your non-negotiables, right? Legal or not, moral or not, right? So when we talk about morality, we're talking about your ethics, your values, your principles, your left and rights, your non-negotiables. You know, who are you as a man or woman? How do you act? What is your, code, for lack of a better term, right? And, given whatever situation, you apply that code, you apply those principles, those values to your decision making process and how you interact with and deal with other people in other situations. Now, if you are mainly focused, mainly aligned with your morality, then that's going to change person by person, and that can be good or bad. It's a very subjective thing. Now, if you are more legally focused, more legalistic, you could say, then whatever the law of land is for wherever you're at is, in theory, at least for this conversation, where you're, going to be, you're constrained to. So whether or not those laws are good or bad with your morals is another thing, another, discussion entirely.
Right. And inherently laws are not bad. The only thing that makes them bad or are the people who interpret them. This
And
is
make
why
them.
people hate lawyers. Yeah. This is why people
Well,
hate lawyers and
interpret
congressmen.
them, enforce them, and make them,
Hmm. Yes.
right? So if you're legalistic and you're like, hey, the law is good, not following the law is bad. Okay, what if it's a bad law?
Right.
And then you uphold that law, even though it's bad. Are you still good? Are you bad? Do you take it as a get out jail free card? It's like, oh, I was just following the law. I was just following orders. There's a
Oh,
book about that, by the way. It's called Ordinary Men. You should check it out.
there's a entire set of trials about that set in the freaking city of Nuremberg. I'm just saying this. The death camp guards were quote just following orders. Now, were they legally right? Gray area. Were they morally right? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's the difference. Like you could apply that today to red flag laws. If the citizens of the world decided that, or I guess the citizens of America got tired of the American government and notionally, I'm going to emphasize that, notionally revolted, would the cops then join them, stay out of their way, or side with the government and fire on their own people? That is a question of legality versus morality.
Let's stir the pot a little bit. All right. So we
Oh,
had a lot of fun
please.
with
Let's do it.
BLM a couple of years ago. So
Oh, did we have
the
fun? I was
the
thinking we
case
had more
of
fun with the NF NFAC, the Not Round
not
Coalition.
you make me edit so much. Yeah, those guys too.
They were
But
indeed around.
stop it. I have to edit this. You don't. No, but
Yes.
so the case of Floyd, right?
Mm,
So
terrible thing.
stripping away everything, right?
Yes.
All of your bias, all of everything else, right? You have a case of a police officer, guy who's supposed to uphold the law, hanging out on this dude's neck for a while he's on the ground. Okay.
Hmm.
You had several officers behind him guarding him. You have a whole ring of people around them taking videos and pictures and everything else. And this guy ends up dying.
Yep.
Okay. So let's strip away all the bias or potential bias that could be handled here. Okay. So let's say a new notional scenario. Okay. You have suspect A, or only suspect. You have suspect. Okay.
Yes.
He was, arrested for fill in the blank, something. Officer A is on this dude's neck, which you need for breathing and blood flow and such. Kind of important. Okay. You have officers B and C. I think there's only like two of them. Maybe there's three of them, right?
I think there's only two.
Hanging out behind, by the vehicle. And then you have all the bystanders. Okay. How long were they there? Was there not a different solution? The officer knows this is wrong. He has to. He has to know this is wrong. He's hanging out on a dude's neck. It's not comfortable. It is taking a conscious effort for him to be there while this dude is struggling to breathe. Okay. The officers behind him probably know this isn't right. Okay. Did they step up? No, they did not. Did they put a stop to it? No, they did not. Any of those people that were around them taking pictures and videos, did they stop them? Or him, rather? No. No, they did not. So think of it from an outsider's perspective, okay? I see this guy is obviously not having a great day. I don't know what the situation is, okay? But he's on his neck. I don't think he can breathe all that well. Every time that I yell and tell him to get off, he doesn't do anything, right? Do I go and rush that officer? What happens then? Because then I'm breaking a law. Several, in fact. Could I morally save this guy? Maybe. Could I end up with a bunch of holes? Yeah, maybe that too.
I'd say that's probably the likely outcome.
Yeah. Could I get all those other people to rush with me so, before they can fire off a shot? Yeah, probably not. But then what happens? Do you think all those people get off scot-free?
No.
Do you think their sergeant comes down and is like, oh yeah, you guys were in the right. Sorry about that guy. We had issues with him before. No sweat.
I know this is just basic framework of an argument. I have wanted to sit here and play devil's advocate this entire time.
Go for it. That's why we're having
Let's
this
start from the
discussion.
beginning. Okay, so Officer A has his neck or has his knee on the back of suspect's neck. Does he? Is there a possibility that he doesn't realize where he has his knee? Maybe,
Probably. Maybe.
but more than likely, he knows where he has his knee. Does he have track of how long he's been doing this? Probably not, but a good possibility that he does. There's always a possibility. And speaking of the other officers, is there a chance that they are not watching him? but instead are watching the entire crowd around them to protect this person. So they have no idea what's actually going on behind them. Very, very, very good possibility, unless one of them turns around and looks.
Mm-hmm.
So, in keeping with this, God, and I hate to even go this route because it's a morality thing. The man was murdered, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Where there was there an issue with something in his system that probably helped this along? Yes. In fact, there was. The tox screen revealed that there was fentanyl in his system. I mean, anybody who's ever had fentanyl, has ever heard of fentanyl, has ever read up on fentanyl, knows how dangerous that drug is. So you have a suspect on drugs, including it's a barbiturate, right?
I couldn't tell you, man.
Fentanyl. I mean, it's a step up from morphine. I've had it in my system before, and it's I can see why people get addicted to it.
Opioid.
Yes, well, opioid. Thank you. Yes. So he's got an opioid in the system. Does he have another drug in his system? Probably. I don't really know people who just take straight fentanyl. It doesn't take much to kill you.
And to be clear, so it's a synthetic opioid, right? That's 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine.
It's insane.
Outside of a controlled environment, he should not be taking this crap.
No.
Should be taking this crap regardless. I'm not a fan of fentanyl at all.
No. I only got it because I was in extreme amount of pain. Extreme. But regardless, back to the story. Was there something in his system? Yes. Did it contribute to his death? Highly likely. So you have factor A, B, and C, including the officer's knee on his neck. This man was going to die, period. It was going to happen, given the circumstances. Could it have been avoided? Yes. Was it going to be avoided? Probably not. They didn't know he had fentanyl in his system. So, even cutting off his blood supply to his brain by keeping a knee on his neck, that just hastened things along, honestly. And I hate the fact that Floyd died, period. He shouldn't have died. But, God, given the circumstances, I don't know how they could have negated it. I'm not saying anything of what the officer did was correct. I can't even remember the situation of why he was getting arrested. I think it was like something about a bad check, but there's so much else that was going on behind the scenes involving those two that I don't even know what's legit, what's not, what is fact surrounding this, what's not. But regardless, man died. There's so many asterisks surrounding this that it's just insane.
And we went on a little rant about that, right? But
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But not to get lost in the weeds. But we're talking about how can you discern
Legal.
How can you discern how you should act between your morality and legality of a situation, right? So imagine if you're a bystander, right? You still have all those factors playing off in your head. You don't know the full backstory of what's going on. You don't have the guy's talk string. You don't know their history. You might not even have seen what happened before you came to the crowd. Okay.
Right.
But you see an officer on a dude's neck, which sends red flags in your head. And then his two buddies, holding the crowd back. Three guys holding the crowd back, essentially. Right. So, I mean, what's all going through your head, man? So you have a not okay situation, which could be perceived as, this guy, trying to hurt this guy in public for, who knows what reason. Okay. But then what's your course of action? Call 911. They're there.
Right.
Okay. I mean, so legally, say if you do try to act, okay, in the eyes of the law, in that moment, you are wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
because it'll take a whole jury, it'll take a whole deal to figure that out and make it right. But in the moment, you're wrong. And those officers are going to feel threatened, and they're going to take whatever action that they can to make themselves feel safe again. Like that's human nature. Okay. Morally, do I act or do I not act?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you
Because
try to save
outside,
this guy's life or you do not?
right? Because you already know the legal ramifications, right? So say you get put away or you hurt an officer or whatever, you'll probably go away. What if you have a kid to take care of or an adult, a parent or a sibling? I mean, what if what about your whole entire life that gets put up because of that action, which may or may not go your way? What if you don't do anything and a guy dies on the ground in the middle of the street? Can you live with
So
that?
so I think short of like rushing those cops, you do whatever you can morally to bring attention to the fact that this guy's obviously struggling. This
They
officer
did.
clearly has a knee. They
They
didn't.
did.
It-
They did.
And so in my okay, look, in my
You're
mind,
choking him.
these
He
guys are
can't breathe. Your
in my
knee's on
mind,
his neck.
these guys are literally standing way the fuck far back with phones in their hands, screaming, "He can't breathe! He can't breathe! He can't breathe!" What would I have done? Put my damn phone down, walk towards him, hands straight up in the air, being like, "Guys, he can't breathe. His knee's on his neck. Move your freaking knee. Like you are literally killing him." I would do that over and over and over again until they got the point up, or they had to move to come arrest me. But that's just me.
Or you got shot. Yeah, and like I'm not like I know we're both
Dude,
playing
if I got
devil's
shot
advocate
with my
here.
hands up, oh my god, they are going to jail for murder. Plain and simple. And that sucks for me, for sure. But
And the dude
you
did
know, he did.
for
He did.
for killing the guy on the ground. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to get in a fight with you over it. I'm just saying,
Right.
like,
No,
think
I
about
get you.
when there was the school shooting in Texas.
Jesus.
They literally stopped parents from like they held
I
people
know.
back from going in to save their kids.
Oh my god. And I could get on a freaking 2-hour rant on this, but
A
I
whole rant
won't.
over that, right? But I'm just saying.
Fuck those
So
cops.
these are the kind of things that, and not to go on a whole anti-cop thing. That's
Right.
a whole
That's
other
a
conversation.
different story.
But the what we're trying to get across is you need to have your principles, your values, your ethics, your code, however you want to say it, in line. You have to have
Yes.
your lefts and rights nailed down before you get into a situation like this, which could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen whenever. You need to get this sorted out because as an adult, as a person living in the world, you have to be able to navigate these kind of situations. Any situation, big or small. You're going to be, navigating that with your principles, and you're going to be, trying to operate within the confines of the law and your principles. If those don't match up, you need to make a choice.
It's
Do
funny.
you, in a situation, do you eat your principles to maintain in law, or do you say screw the law in order to maintain, within your integrity?
So it's
Is
funny.
that situation dependent?
Yeah. Growing up, I watched all those stupid freaking movies where, when I was younger, uh, main character has wife, kid, whatever, and he goes on a friggin' rampage to save them or whatever. You know, maybe not a rampage in some of these movies, but you get the point. Like they do s- absolutely ridiculous things for their family the normal person would not do. They would be like, above all, it's just like do whatever you do to get yourself and your family out of that situation without risking someone's life. Me, with now having a wife and a child on the way, I will go on a rampage. I will 100% shoot first, ask questions later to save my wife and child. Like non-negotiable. And I hate to even
Well,
say that.
it's like the trolley problem.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It's like the trolley problem. Okay. So outside of the whole legality legalistic mindset, going straight, just focusing on morals, right? The trolley problem, you are a bystander in front of a control pad or a control lever that
Mhm.
will control whether a trolley train continues to go straight down on its current path or divert to the side. The straight path has 5 people tied to the rails, and the divert path has 1 person. The trolley is going full speed. It cannot stop. It has no brakes. And you are the only person there. All other factors are gone, right? So there's no cool hoodwink or catch 22 that you can get out of, choosing. Not choosing is a choice because you would have killed 5 people. But you have to choose, right? To either let 5 people die or to kill 1 person, which in lies the problem. It's a thought experiment, right? An ethic psychology question, right? So
Right.
do you sacrifice one to save the larger number? At
I think
face value,
I
if
think
you
the
don't know
phrase
any of these people,
right. If you don't know any of these people, I believe the phrase you're looking for is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
mm-hmm. But now what if that 1 person is the 1 person that's a family member
The one person you care about most in this world.
or your wife or your kid?
Mm.
It's a
Which
lot
should be the
different
same
choice.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
It
lot
is.
different question.
Yeah. If I don't know that one person, sorry, bud. If I do know that one person and it's my wife or it's my kid, sorry, everybody else. But
What if
that's
all
just
five
me.
people are convicted felons and they killed a bunch of people or did other nasty stuff?
Then I'm just going to arrange a meeting between them and God. Sorry.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's never black and white, especially with morals. There's
Correct.
always other factors.
There's always a gray area too.
And with legality, there is too. I mean, you just talked about
Yes.
interpretation of the law, right?
Correct.
Things that lawyers can do legally should be illegal. It's absolutely
Dude,
insane.
it's so bad.
Some of the laws on the books should be legal. I mean, okay, here, shameless plug to Marbury versus Madison, 1803. Okay, a law repugnant to
Oh,
the Constitution is void.
yes.
That's a Supreme Court decision. That is, yeah,
Yes.
that is law
That
from the most supremest of supreme laws in our land. By the way, just throwing that out there. All to say, right? You, I can almost guarantee someone breaks the law every single day. I break the law every single day. I go over 75 miles per hour every day at some point or another.
no comment. I
No,
plead the fifth.
I plead the fifth. You know what I mean? But it's like there are some things that people don't care about. It is so small. It's such a, it's so far down on the list. And we have so many laws, period, that you can never know all of them.
So the big problem I have with a lot of these laws, and especially with the punishment of these laws, if you break them, so many of these laws are victimless. Like if you violate these
Mm,
laws, it's a victimless crime. So why are you getting punished if there's no one there that that like you wronged? Like
right.
speeding? Okay, I'm going to say this and you will immediately know my political stance. Society cannot ever be labeled as a victim. The state can never be labeled as a victim. It can't. It's an entity. It is not a person. You cannot harm an entity or an organization. You can't. It's not possible. I'm sure someone out there will dig something up like, oh, well, this, blah, 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 this. I'm telling you, notionally, speeding is technically not a crime unless you end up hurting someone or causing crap loads of damage to someone's property, speeding is not a crime. Just like smoking marijuana is not a crime. I'm just going to say it. Until you actually harm someone by your actions, sorry, man, it's a victimless crime. It just is.
All gun laws are infringements.
Also, yes, taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft. Oh, holy crap. Tax law. Ugh.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that. So many people complain about the loopholes on this, but they fail to take advantage of those loopholes. Just saying. They're there for everyone.
They need better lawyers. No. So,
or read more.
So that's my thing too. So they're just, especially in the States with the laws being so vast and overarching and just micromanaging, right? I don't think it's possible for you to uphold every single law every day.
It's not possible.
You're going to break one at some point, right? So if we're at the point where we can understand and agree on that, right? So where is that crossover for you? Where is that okay for you? Right? And obviously, like you said, if you're not harming anybody, then, what's the harm? Okay. But people need to understand where they stand with laws, with principles. Because say you're in a situation where you have to make the law of the land, where you have to set the ground rules. Okay. So now your principles, your history, your past experiences, your upbringing and beliefs are going to be what's driving you with those laws, right? That's going to be your first instinct when you're trying to govern or set ground rules. So does the good of the many always outweigh the good of the few? Because that's not how it started out in the States. At what point does that change? We're called to be leaders. We're trying to raise up and make leaders. Leaders need to be able to critically think and make these decisions and live with the consequences. Hey guys, Seven from the Hard Times Strongmen podcast here to bring a quick word from our newest sponsor, Blackbeard Fire Starters. We first saw Blackbeard Fire Starter a few years ago, and after seeing what the product can do, it's been our kit ever since. Their fire starter rope and their fire plugs are windproof, waterproof, dummy proof. They have an insane burn time, and like anything else that they offer, it just works. Besides their fire starters, they offer an arc lighter, ferro rod, stormproof matches, basically anything that you need to get a fire started. To better equip you, we cherry-picked their inventory and made our Hard Times Strongmen fire kit. Basically our essentials kit for anything that you can need to get a fire started. But besides that, they're offering 10% off anything in their store when you use the code STRONGMEN. We love the guys at Blackbeard Firestarter. We love what they're doing. We trust them and we trust their products. And we honestly can't recommend them enough. Make sure to check them out online at blackbeardfire.com or on Instagram at blackbeardfire. Huge shout out to the guys at Blackbeard Fire for working with us and for bringing the fire. As always, guys, stay in the fight.
Hey everybody, this is 6 and 7 with the Hard Times Strongmen podcast, and we are coming to talk to you about our Patreon and Discord.
Hey guys, our patrons get early access to all of our episodes. They get all of our exclusive pre and post shows, all of our spicy takes, all of our rabbit holes that we go on, everything that we want to include in an episode, but we can't because we need to stay on topic. And soon enough, we will be offering digital downloads, guides, everything that we've been working on in the background will soon be available to our patrons. So make sure to check it out.
And come hang out with us on Discord. Speaking of the spicy stuff, this is where we discuss most of it. Once you're there, you will get access to all of our in-depth discussions, including stuff like homesteading, fieldcraft, medical, camping, communications, shooting. You like ARs? Come talk to us about it. You like 4x4 vehicles and prepping? Come talk to us about it.
You like tannerite, thermite, napalm? Come talk to us about it. All of the campfire talks that would get us kicked off of other platforms, it's right there in our Discord. Come join our community.
We're active on Discord every day. We're interacting with members constantly. We have guys from every walks of life coming to contribute their expertise to all of these various fields and subjects that we've been talking about.
Come join the Watch Discord. Come join the Discord. Join our community. Build up that better class of man. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, that's what you're really getting there, isn't it? Like it's judgment calls. It's those gray areas. It's one person's interpretation of what's right versus what's wrong, or what's needed versus what isn't.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's ever been put in a leadership put in a leadership situation where they have to make that call, it's not a fun one. And it's something more than likely you're going to have to live with the rest of your life, especially if you get it wrong. Well, regardless of if you get it right or wrong, if there is a mortal consequence, you're going to be living with that no matter what.
Well, and we say later, so we're catering more towards our more traditional classes inside the conversation, but this is a Dadisode. Okay, as a dad, as a father, as a husband, as a father, it's my call.
Right.
The decision's on me.
Yep.
The consequences are going to have to be lived with me, but not only me, but me and my family. Whatever decision I make. Because I could go to work tomorrow. I could be blasted going to work tomorrow. And I could, crash and die and, take several people with me. Okay. Then what's my family going to do? If I'm out of the picture, how are they going to, how are they going to be provided for? What about the other family who might have been a dad or a mom? Our actions have consequences. So when I show up to a situation, say a trolley problem, or I show up to issue with law enforcement or whatever, right? Referencing our, earlier point in the conversation, right? I'm not just thinking about me. I can't. I don't have that
Right.
leeway anymore. I don't have that freedom anymore. That's something I gave up willingly, gladly, right? But every decision I make, I have to make with the knowledge. I have to make with the burden that it affects my family, and my family needs to come first in these decisions. Because you know what? If we come on hard times, who's going to be the last one to eat? Me.
Yep.
Because it's up to me to make sure that my wife and my boys are fed, and we have a roof over our heads, and the roof doesn't leak. So, I have to have this on lock. I have to know what my non-negotiables are.
And it's crazy too, getting to that viewpoint as well, because, before I even got married, I was still of the mindset of, screw it. If I die, I die. At least I'll have done the right thing.
Right.
I didn't care. I legitimately did not care if I lived or died. I think that was a lot of the indoctrination that was instilled in me in the army, was just do the right thing, integrity, honor, selfless
If you don't have
service.
anything else, you have that.
Exactly.
And if you die, you die well, right?
Exactly. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. That's the entire principle of it. But now that I'm married, now that I'm about to be a dad, I'm struggling daily with changing that mindset. I still am. There are so many times where I'll be sitting there and, watching TV or whatever with my wife, and, I'll watch something happen. And the first thing I do is spout off about how that's not what I would have done. I would have intervened, done this, 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 and this. And she'll just look at me and be like, no, you wouldn't have. Because You've got me. You've got, you know, our dog. You've got our child in the way. You're not going to be doing that. And I had to sit there and think, she's right. I
Hmm.
really need to get out of that mindset because that is my knee jerk reaction is to just jump in, jump in to defend somebody.
Hmm.
And that's the way I grew up my entire life. You know, stand up to bullies, stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves, stand up for people who need help, you know,
Hmm.
regardless of what happens to you.
And that's
Do the right thing.
exactly, that's very counter cultural, right?
Right.
As a very moralistic approach, not legalistic. So, let's talk a little bit about the other side. Okay. More legalistic approach. Okay. This is where we start getting into some scary psychology type stuff.
Yes.
Okay. So look up, while we're talking about this, look up that look up the prison experiment and look up the experiment with the, I forget what it's called, but it was essentially where a researcher had a participant shock somebody.
Oh God. Yes.
Look up those two because those are really great examples. But I'm going to talk about Ordinary Men. So, audiobook that I listened to a while back. I'm going to read off the main headline from Amazon. But Ordinary Men, Reserve Police Battalion 101 and the Final Solution in Poland. So, written by Christopher R. Browning, explores how a unit of average middle-aged men became the cold-blooded murderers of tens of thousands of Jews in Poland in 1942.
They
So,
were just following orders.
these were just ordinary dudes. It was a reserve police battalion, not
Hmm.
combat arms,
Not SS.
not not active duty. This was a reserve police battalion. These were middle-aged dudes, most of them. There are some younger guys, mostly middle-aged dudes with full families. Okay. And through groupthink, through following orders, through peer pressure, and obeying to authority, with however big or little pushes they had to be given, these were the guys. It was their job in Poland to go around and liquidate towns of the Jewish population to the point to where, what am I trying to say? Uh, if you're squeamish, don't listen to this part. Okay. Viewer discretion is advised. All right. To the point to where they would roll into town, gather up all the Jews, march them out to a field where they would have them dig their own graves, lay down, put the barrel of their rifle to the base of the neck, and pull the trigger. And they would do that all day. And you had some guys who would get sick of it. And, they obviously had severe PTSD, but, they get transferred out or whatever. They didn't have the stomach for it. You had most of them who did not have that problem because psychology is a hell of a thing when you have an authority figure who's telling you what to do, which, we'll talk about with that shock experiment or the prison experiment. Okay. When you have a group who is doing something, you don't want to be the outsider, right? So peer pressure. And then you have the other factors, the inherent factors. Oh, I joined and, I have this obligation. I have to follow orders. Okay. And you have the fallback of, guys, I know you don't want to do this, but you just need to follow orders. Okay. Then people can commit atrocities. Literally tens of thousands of people. And these were some 30-year-old, 40-year-old dudes who hadn't dreamed of this in their worst nightmares. And they committed some of the worst atrocities during that war. So, following orders, legalistic mindset, not a great deal.
Following orders and still committing genocide is still genocide and is still war crime. and you are
When your
still going
orders
to
are
jail.
genocide, it's still genocide. We had a freaking Nuremberg trial over this, right?
There is quite literally, I I don't even know how to describe it, but it's a duty. It is your duty to not follow an unlawful order.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. If you are given an unlawful order, it is your duty to not follow it. Full stop. I don't care who you are. Otherwise, you're going to end up at the Nuremberg trial 2.0.
And that's for military folks, right? And that's for, law enforcement. But the standard should be for everybody.
Correct.
It should be your duty to do the right thing.
Correct.
So, quick aside before you get into those other experiments, but Uvalde, okay,
Oh, God.
guys who were following orders from a coward let a whole bunch of kids die and stop their parents from saving their kids.
You know what?
And they will
I'm just going to
always
go ahead and say
be
it.
they will always be immortalized as cowards
They are all cowards.
because that is not what you do.
Every
But
single
and
one
and
of
that's
them
why
did not
and
go in
that's
as a coward.
well and that's why I'm warning against this, right? Because truly, I cannot say enough. Like I like it is not me. I obviously don't agree with it, but I understand. I understand because psychology is a hell of a thing. Is a hell of a thing. And I completely disagree. I 1000% would not have conducted myself the way that those officers did. But those officers are people. And some people act that way. So
Keep
the
People can
fact,
be cowards too.
well, what I'm saying is that you need to you need to know that that is a possibility for you,
Oh,
right?
100%.
So work against that, war against that. If you don't have principles, if you can't name your principles right now, fix that.
Yes.
Pray, meditate, think on it, read up on, on ethics, on values, on morals, on principles, carve that out on your heart and then hold that line. Because that is what matters at the end of the day. Nobody cares about an officer or a service member who has just followed orders. They care about the guy who thought outside the box, who did the right thing. That's what actually matters.
I still praise all those parents who either got arrested trying to get in there or got arrested, got let go, and then still went inside to get their kids. I praise those kids for being brave enough
Parents.
to get the hell out of there too.
Oh yeah, the kids
You
that,
know,
that booked it. Yeah. No, I mean, you did your job.
correct.
You did your job. You fulfilled your duty in that moment. So yeah, they should be proud of that. 100%.
Hmm.
But continue on. What did you find?
Okay, so there's two experiments where it dealt with legality versus morality. Um, so the first of these is the Stanley Milgram shock experiment.
Okay.
This is pretty messed up. I have heard of this before.
I know it's horrible, isn't it?
It is. They're both
You said
terrible.
Milgram, right? It's Milgram, right?
Yes, Milgram.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Horrible,
Stanley Milgram,
horrible stuff.
Milgram. So he was a psychologist at Yale University, and this is a super famous study. If you haven't heard about it, go look it up.
63.
Yeah. So it dealt with the obedience in psychology. So this has everything to do with the whole following orders phenomenon, so to speak.
Hey,
So basically, what it was in July of '61. Yeah, yeah, I've already got it pulled up.
okay.
That's actually what I've got pulled up right now. So in
Okay.
July
I
of
just want to make sure I
'61,
was following on in the same one.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So a year after the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem, Milgram devised this experiment to answer the question: could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could we call them all accomplices? Quote from Milgram in 1974. So basically, he was trying to figure out whether or not the Germans that were claiming that they were just following orders were just that, or if there was something more to it. If they were technically innocent, if not morally innocent. Long story short, no. Um, However, the premise of this was that he was using male participants from Yale, where they were paired, yeah, where they were paired with a another person, and they drew lots to find out who would be the quote, learner and who would be the quote, teacher. And of course, this was fixed. The students were always going to end up being the teacher, and the learner was always someone that worked with Milgram, pretending to be a participant. So the learner was taken into a room and had electrodes attached to his arms, and the teacher, student, and researcher went into a room next door that contained a shock generator and a row of switches marked from 15 volts, so a slight shock, to 375 volts, severe shock, to 450 volts, death. The shocks were not real. Spoiler alert, not real. Uh, the learners were nothing more than actors.
However, they thought it
However,
was real.
the teachers believed the shocks were real. Did not know any of this was a setup. And this was by design, period. So it was just designed to measure obedience to authority figures, even when it involved causing harm to others. So that's where we get into the link to the Germans, the Nazis during the Holocaust, whether or not they were following orders. Uh, so participants were males aged 20 to 50 whose jobs were either unskilled or professional, ranged anywhere from there. From that area, they were paid a minute amount, $4.50 just for being there.
In 1963
In
dollars.
1963. Yes, correct. So, regardless, um, once this was all set up, uh, the learner was supposed to have learned a list of word pairs given to him by the teacher, and then the teacher tests him by naming a word and asking the learner to recall its partner from the list of four possible choices. And each time that the learner was got it wrong, the teacher was told to administer an electric shock, increasing the level each time. And there were 30 switches on this generator. The learner gave mainly wrong answers on purpose, and the teacher gave them the electric shock. And when the teacher refused to administer the shock, the experimenter was given a series of orders, prods to ensure that they continued. They were essentially ordered to, forced to continue.
So they were not threatened. They were not aggressive. Nothing. It was in a calm voice. Please administer the shock. I really don't think. Please administer the shock, sir. Please administer the. And it was insistent, and it was the fact that it was a person of perceived authority, and
Mhm.
they would do it.
Yeah. So in the end, 2/3 of the participants, the teachers, continued to the highest level of 450 volts. 65%. All of the participants continued to at least 300 volts.
Yeah.
That is willingness. Like that says a lot. That says a lot to me. And of course, Milgram did more than just this one experiment. There was 18 variations that he did, and all he did was alter the situation to see how this affected obedience. And in the end, it was messed up. Like it just showed that people just followed orders,
Right. So the
mindlessly,
conclusion,
essentially.
yeah. So the conclusion, you could get the takeaway that there was something about them as people that caused them to obey, but more realistically, the situation influenced them and caused them to behave like
Right,
they did. So
right.
there are a lot of factors in place. All right. So the formality of the location, right? This is a very formal, this is a very, you know, legit situation and environment. Okay. The behavior of the experimenter. Okay. So even though you have someone who they could not see, who was, say, oh, like crying or screaming or whatever in shock, you had the experimenter who was very composed, very professional, you know, was very, had a very authoritative presence, right? Not overbearing, but a very professional, very, they were an authority figure. Okay. And the fact that these people had volunteered and been paid to do a job, right? So people tend to obey orders if they recognize the authority and they recognize the right and wrong. So this can
I think,
stem all the way back from you growing up.
yeah, I think this quote kind of says it all from Milgram when he wrote that stark authority was pitted against the subject's strongest moral imperatives against hurting others, and with the subject's ears ringing with the screams of the victims, authority won more often than not.
Yeah.
That is messed up.
So to recap, okay, you had two people in a room, the experimenter and the participant, and then behind a wall that you couldn't see this other person, you had someone in a microphone. Every time that they would, quote unquote, press the button, they would be, they would be signified, and then they would scream like they were being put in pain. So this was not real. They weren't getting shocked. They were acting, and the person could not see them. But given the information that they were given, they believed that they were shocking the person up to the point of death because they got paid what, $6 and like $4 or something,
Or something.
and somebody in a lab coat told them to do it. And this is just some Joe Splo on the street, some ordinary guy.
Mhm.
Scary stuff, man. What about the prison experiment? Did you
Okay,
find that one
so
yet?
yes. So I actually know this one pretty well. This is the Stanford prisoner experiment. So what happened was obviously took place at Stanford this time, and it was a group of students, and they were divided between prisoners and guards. And it was a study in which it simulated a prison environment. And oddly enough, this was funded by the Office of Naval Research. So social experiment, and it took place over a period of 2 weeks. And long story short, they found out that there was such severe mistreatment of the prisoners that escalated so quickly that the uh, the head guy in charge terminated the experiment after only 6 days. Like people got
It was supposed to last
so
for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. They got so freaking like what do you call it? Egotistical or like
Drunk on power,
drunk
drunk
on
on
power.
authority.
Thank you. Drunk on power that they just started treating like their own like fellow students. They just treated an ordinary human being who had done nothing wrong like absolute complete crap.
So on day 2, the prisoners staged a rebellion. That's how bad it got. That's how quick.
Oh my god.
That's how quickly it happened. So within the first 4 days, 3 prisoners had become so traumatized that they were released.
Hmm. Oh my god. Yeah. Some of the guards became cruel and tyrannical, while a bunch of the prisoners became depressed and disoriented.
Only after an observer came in or upon the scene did Zimbardo conclude the experiment. Less than a week after it started. Like I said, 6 days after it started. So dehumanizing people, putting people in positions of authority and people in submissive roles, and letting them run wild does not end well.
Yeah. And it basically just. So a lot of people claimed that this experiment attracted people who were predisposed to authoritarianism. So people who, for lack of a better phrase, were just bullies. Like they had a predisposition to being bullies.
However, the people that volunteered, they knew of the experiment that you would be either selected to be a prisoner or a guard, and they were
Hmm.
randomly selected for their roles. So it's not like you were,
Yeah,
trying
it's
like
not
you
like
were
you were
like, oh,
picking it.
I'm ready to be a guard.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a
This
guard.
was
No.
this was randomized essentially.
Yes. But the fact that it like devolved so quickly to such a severe level to where like there was a prisoner revolt, there was um the guards implementing a system of rewards and punishments in like by day like 4 or something like that. It's almost as alarming as Milgram's experiment. In fact, it's probably more
Mm-hmm.
alarming because that kind of thing happens daily here in the United States by people who signed up specifically to be guards, like
Well,
knowing
and
they're going to be in a position of power and abusing that power.
mm-hmm. Well, and police officers, prison guards, teachers,
Yes.
security guards, whatever. All right. So couple these two experiments with ordinary men, right? With a historical example of those atrocities, right? The whole point of this is that this shouldn't be a surprise to people, like what people are capable of. At no point should you be, oh my gosh, I can't believe that somebody did this. Like the capability for people in a negative context is very real, and well documented, right? So what stops you from doing that are not laws,
No, it's your morals, plain and
is your
simple.
morals, is your principles. Okay. This is obvious in, talking about gun laws, talking about anything.
Mhm.
Laws do not stop people from doing anything. Laws are
Yep.
written on a piece of paper and you either agree to follow them or you don't. What factors in that decision is who you are as a person, your non negotiables, your principles, your values. That is why you need to cultivate that. That is why you need to cultivate that in your family, your friends, your community. And, along with that, you need to figure out what your non negotiables are. Because if you have principles, but you aren't willing to hold them, you don't really have principles. This takes sacrifice. And you need to be prepared for that. Because as good or bad as it is right now, can guarantee it can get a whole lot worse.
Oh, it's I guarantee it's going to get a lot worse.
So on that cheery note, you got anything else, man?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked. So I have to end this. I'm gonna give one of my favorite quotes that I've heard in a movie from Shooter towards the end of it. Marky Mark
Okay.
is in chains, is appearing before the Attorney General. The Attorney General says to the Colonel, "Colonel, your moral compass is so fucked up. I'll be shocked if you manage to find your way back to the parking lot." And we have plenty of people like that in positions of authority in the government, even in corporations, in small businesses, everywhere. We have people whose moral compasses are so up they probably can't find their way back to their car. Don't be one of those people.
If you
And that's
don't
all I got.
stand for anything, if you
You'll
don't
fall for
stand for
everything.
anything, you'll fall for anything.
Yep. Yeah, that's all I got.
Dad joke.
Dad jokes. Oh God. How am I never prepared for these? I know we're doing a Dadisode, and I never have one on my hand.
You are a dad. How do you not have a dad joke?
Because I do most of my stuff based off of situations.
I do want to nail down the fact that we do this every week.
I know. Okay, so I made a whopping 6 figures last year. I was also fired from the toy company for being too slow. I didn't understand why the frisbee kept getting bigger, and then it hit me.
Why the dog sit in the shade?
He was a hot dog.
Because he didn't want to be a hot dog.
Oh, it's close. 3.14% of sailors are considered pirates.
That's a good one. I threw a boomerang once and it never came back. Now I live in constant fear.
Uh, I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why.
Okay, you're done. Guys, we are the Hard Time Strongman podcast, cheering up a bear class of man. We talked about legality versus morality. Best advice I have for you is, like we've said in I don't even know how many episodes, you are the man that that you want to be. So if you don't like who you are, you can fix that. Where that needs to start is your principles and your morals, right? Your personal foundation. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. So nail that down and get that right. You got anything else?
So my best advice right now is don't go into the grass without armor. It's got blades.
Stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight.
Hey guys, this is 6 and 7 with the Hard Time Strongman podcast. Wanted to take a second to do a mental health check-in and to tell y'all about the 988 Crisis Lifeline. So the 988 Lifeline is a national network of local crisis centers that provides free and confidential emotional support to people in suicidal crisis or emotional distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the United States. You can reach the Lifeline at 988lifeline.org, or you can call or text 988 to get help, to get someone real on the phone.
Every struggle is different. Every struggle is hard, but you are not alone in whatever you're going through. As someone who has used the 988 crisis line, I fully recommend that if you're feeling any of those feelings of depression, suicide, hopelessness, get in touch with them immediately. They will help you, they will listen to you.
Once again, guys, you can reach the Lifeline at 988lifeline.org, or you can call or text them at 988. As always, guys, stay in the fight.
Stay in the fight.